You've been hearing us talk about Imperial yeast for a while now, and that's because we absolutely love the stuff. With 200 billion cells in each pitch-right pouch, we rarely need to make starters these days. While originally based out of Portland, Oregon, Imperial yeast has expanded to the East Coast, meaning even more people have access to their incredible lineup of yeast, including popular strains like A07 Flagship, A38 Juice, A09 Pub, and a Brulosophy favorite, L17 Harvest. So good. Whether you brew at home or on the commercial scale, Imperial yeast has what you need to make the best beer possible. You can check out all of their available strains and start your planning at imperialyeast.com. Well, here we are approaching the end of yet another year, one that has been quite interesting in various ways, not only for us at Brulosophy, but for the beer and brewing industry altogether. This is the Brulosophy Podcast. I'm your host, Marshall Schott, and on this Brews Views episode, I'm joined by contributor Cade Job to talk about our views on how this year, 2022, went.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we did this show last year, I was talking about like how excited I was for 2021 to be over, and I think also the year before that, 2020, right? I remember looking back and going like, man, I'm glad this is done. But I don't have the same sentiment this year, and I'm so happy about that.
Yeah.
I mean, 22 I felt like was a pretty decent year, all things considered, especially when compared to 2020 and 2021 for me. I mean, there were some struggles and there were some setbacks, but there's also some good things, and I'm excited about 2023. So this will be another fun one to do this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. 2020 and 2021 were a couple of the shittiest years, I think, on record for most people living today.
Yeah.
But still, 2022 was pretty interesting, and I think that's just due in large part to what remained of the world as we crawled out from underneath this boulder that we call COVID. I went back to the episode we recorded last year. I was just curious of what we really talked about on that show, and our primary focus, perhaps naturally, was COVID and how that impacted us to the point, it was kind of about our hopes for 2022 as well. And I'm excited to talk about that and how we were able to do things better or differently in 2022. I'm really thrilled with so much of what we've been able to accomplish since then, as well as the things we've got planned for the very near future. Though I'd be lying if I said it was all sunshine and roses. This is Brews Views, so we're going to be hitting on all of that stuff as honestly and as unfiltered as we can, which means we may be using language that some aren't comfortable with. So there's your warning on that. And also, I apologize for the stuffy sound of my voice. I came down with this cold that's going around. Thankfully, I still feel great. It's just clogging my face up a little bit. So if you're a fan of this show and you'd like to receive a reward for your support, consider becoming a patron of Brulosophy over at patreon.com/Brulosophy. By making a small monthly pledge, you'll receive rewards like access to unpublished contributor recipes, unique discounts at YakimaValleyHops.com, and an invitation to a monthly live Q&A session with somebody in the brewing world. Our very first guest of 2023 is one of the best homebrewers I know, 2022's Oregon State Homebrewer of the Year and newest Brulosophy contributor, Jordan Folks. While Jordan tends to stick to traditional brewing methods, which have resulted in him winning a ton of awards, he's really open-minded and loves experimenting. In fact, that's exactly what he does for his day job. We're really excited to have him on board and trust that this session is going to be chock full of awesome information. To be a part of it, you have to make your pledge of just $3 or more at patreon.com/Brulosophy no later than Friday, January 20th, 2023, as Jordan's going to be taking questions on Saturday, the 21st. All past sessions are available on our private Patreon and Facebook pages, so you can go back and watch them whenever you like. Learn more about becoming a patron and check out all of the rewards we offer for your support over at patreon.com/Brulosophy. Another really easy way to support us is by using the links found at brulosophy.com/support when you're shopping online. Your experience doesn't change at all, and we get a little kickback for the referral. Finally, if you wouldn't mind leaving a rating and review of this show in Apple Podcast or wherever it is you listen to podcasts, that'd be really awesome. We are so close to hitting that 1,000 review mark in Apple Podcast, which is just a cool milestone, and we'd love to get your help getting us over that line. Feedback is brought to you by Clawhammer Supply, who are known for their incredible all-in-one electric brewing systems. I've brewed on both their 120 and 240 volt systems, and I'm telling you, these things are awesome, efficient, easy to use with a relatively small footprint. You will not be disappointed with one of these units. Plus, the guys behind the company run a really great YouTube channel, which you can find by searching YouTube for Clawhammer Supply. If you're in the market for electric brewing gear or even just reasonably priced kettles and such, make sure to check out what Clawhammer Supply has to offer at clawhammersupply.com. And don't forget to let them know Brewlosophy sent you when you're checking out. That's clawhammersupply.com. Listener Brett Helmbrecht wrote in with feedback after listening to episode 258, where we talked about our views on seasonal brewing and beers. Brett said, when you were on spring beers and the seeming lack thereof, you missed out on mentioning Doppelbock, which I believe originated with German monks for Lenten fasting. Since Lent runs from Ash Wednesday to Easter, which can fall anywhere from March 22nd to April 5th, Doppelbock is a style literally made for preparing for Jesus to rise from the death in the spring. Get a clue, you heathens. Just kidding. I love the show. Keep up the good work.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah. We did forget about Doppelbock. Yeah, the whole thing. That's for Lent. I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's literally called. I mean, it's not. That's not the translation. Liquid bread. But yeah, that whole style of beer was made to provide sustenance so that monks could fast and do other things during Lent. Yeah, we totally missed out on that one. And yeah, I guess you can you can blame my heathenness.
Yeah, I was going to say I fully accept my heathenism. And I apologize for not acknowledging Doppelbock as being a seasonal beer. I actually do view it as a springtime beer. But truthfully, you know, I was aware Belgian monks drank while fasting, which I think is dope. But I don't know the same. I had no idea the same was true for German monks, or that Doppelbock was made for such preparations. You know, I love beer styles. I don't quite study. I don't know the history of every single one of them that well. So today I learned something new, and I think that's great. I have you to thank for that, Brett. So thanks for writing in. If you have show feedback, you can send it to feedback@brewlosophy.com or leave us a note on social media. When we return from this break, our views on 2022.
After a long brew day, the last thing I want to do is waste more time chilling wort. I've tried so many different options, and ultimately I settled on the super efficient immersion chillers made by Jaded Brewing. With the King Cobra and Hydra, I'm able to chill my entire batch of wort from boiling to just a few degrees above groundwater temperature in as little as 6 minutes. If an immersion chiller is right for your brewery, then do yourself a favor and check out all of the rad options Jaded Brewing has to offer at jadedbrewing.com. And be sure to let them know Brewlosophy sent you. Have you ever thought about adding a port to your kettle but held off because you didn't feel like drilling into your gear or sending it off to have someone else do it? From the makers of the world's fastest counterflow chiller, the Xchillerator, comes the Hangover, the easiest way to add extra ports to your kettle as well as countless other options. Mount a faucet to your keg for easy portable pouring. Set up the perfect whirlpool arm. Hold a heating element in place. All of this and so much more without permanently modifying your gear. Manufactured right here in the United States, the Hangover offers brewers too many convenient solutions to list here. So head over to Xchillerator.com today to see what the Hangover can do for you.
I truly feel like this year has been a year of revitalization, finally seeing the light that had been at the end of the tunnel over the prior 2 years. Now, I don't plan to focus too much on it. We've done that before, but it'd be foolish to pretend that COVID didn't have some sort of an impact on where we are at today, not just as Brewlosophy, but as brewers and beer drinkers as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the top of the show, this time last year, we were literally in the midst of Omicron, right? Like, it's hard to think of that just being like 1 year ago.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, vaccines were available, but people were still getting implemented. Kids still weren't vaccinated. I mean, it was a very, very different place whenever we were looking at like 2021, where we were like this time looking into 2022. But now here we are sitting at the end of 2022. And I think most of, at least the United States and the parts where I'm at, everything's open back up again, right? everything's open up for business. We're ready. People are fully outside. And I mean, I'm at Oregon State, and there's no mask policy at Oregon State, so we're having of course, if you're sick or something, you can do that. But vaccines are available for everybody that's 6 months of age or older. And I don't know, for the first time in the couple of years, I'm like, even though we're still struggling to sort of, like you said, come back out from underneath that boulder, I feel like things are going in the right direction, or at least like upward, right?
Yeah, they're absolutely going in a much more positive direction. There's no denying that. I think the one thing that you don't hear talked about too much lately, at least publicly on other podcasts I listen to, or stuff like that, websites and such, is the fact that I imagine it's because of COVID and the huge hit to the economy that has caused. The fact that homebrewing in general is in a bit of a slump right now, and that also carries over into the commercial brewing world. I imagine that most people listening to this show know of breweries that are now closed, that once were there, that are no longer there. In fact, I just saw some stats from the Brewers Association showing that this is going to be 2023 is going to be a year where they expect there to be very little, if any, growth at all in the craft brewing market, and that is just wild based on where we came from about 12 to 15 years ago, and that rocket that took off in the beer and brewing world, to be at a kind of a place, almost a plateau, if not a bit of a downward trajectory. It's just kind of a bummer, and we have to kind of think about ways to keep this thing interesting. And this is again much more of a general kind of far away perspective on brewing and beer in general. It's just kind of a wild perspective.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, a couple of thoughts on that too, right? Like, not to get like too Debbie Downer on like the brewing industry and stuff. I mean, but we had so many years of rapid growth. I mean, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, there's no way that can sustain forever.
Absolutely.
And there were signs before the pandemic that things were about to start changing for craft brewers. And that's the one thing that's great, right? The Brewers Association does a fantastic job of collecting that data and then presenting it to brewers. And I think one of the big key takeaways is, we may not see much growth next year, but especially the huge growth, but there's still lots of silver lining, right? I mean, as on-premise sales comes back and people are starting to go out more, people are starting to travel again and go like destinations, and tourism is coming back. As those things start to come back, craft beer is one of those things that's going to come back with it. And so there may not be growth, but at least like things are, again, trending positively. I mean, at least, or maybe positively is not the right word, but they're certainly not trending negatively, right? It's not like we're sitting here at the end of 2020 or the end of 2021 going, well, crap, I don't know. I mean, 2020 is a total crapshoot. It's like roll the dice and see where it goes. Things could come roaring back, or we could just keep slogging along. And, there's been all kinds of other stuff that's gone on in 2022. But not just brewers and homebrewing itself, but man, the thing that's really hit me, especially close to home, is all the homebrew shops that have been closing. I mean, the Corvallis Brewing Supply closed after like 20 years here. I'm still not sure what's going on with Austin Homebrew Supply. I mean, they have a website, but but SoCo, who are my guys down there in South Austin, those are the guys that I shopped with most often in Austin. SoCo has on their website that they're the only homebrewing store in Austin now. So I mean, I don't know what's going on. But I've heard a number of homebrew shops closing, and that's been sort of a drag, as homebrewing is down, craft brewing is down, beer industry as a whole is down, and then you've got all these new crazy fun beverages. But maybe the new crazy fun beverages are the next way to go. Who knows?
Well, I'm convinced on the commercial level that the crazy fun beverages that I'm not the biggest fan of are what may be helping to keep the industry afloat at this point, because it's bringing in new customers who are looking for something other than IPA and Pilsner. So I I might speak to my own personal preferences or lack thereof for those drinks, those beverages, but that is not a diss on the people who are making it. If I ran a business like that, I'd be making whatever the customers were willing to give me money for. And on the topic of money, it'd be stupid of us to ignore the reality that a lot of the main reason you've got homebrew shops closing is because you are losing people who aren't brewing anymore and going to those shops and spending their money to keep that business afloat. And I think that's an interesting thing, because my understanding was that when the economy is poor, more people do the DIY thing. They like to homebrew more, and that was kind of the trend that I was told about as I was kind of building Brewlosophy up to what it is now. And we're not seeing that now. The economy is not doing very well, and either is homebrewing in particular. And I'm not going to name drop. I'm not going to say who I've spoke to, but I've talked to a lot of people in the industry, and there's a hemorrhaging of people homebrewing right now. And I think that's just such a weird, like this is the first time, at least since I've been in the hobby, that we're seeing a paucity of people going out, buying homebrewing gear, brewing beer at home, having fun with that during a poor economy. And so, that's what leaves me, I guess, kind of sitting back going, well, where is this one going to go? Are we going to see that trend back up as people start getting out of their houses more? And, maybe it is going to be this interesting shift. I just don't know.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because the economy, I mean, I'm not going to get too off into the economic weeds, but because I'll be way over my skis, but the economy's not necessarily doing bad, right? Inflation is high, sure. But the problem is people are out there spending a whole bunch of money, which is interesting.
Good point. Yeah.
Right. It's so it is one of those sort of head scratchers, because it's like, man, okay, well, if people are out there spending money, why are homebrew shops closing? Why are breweries closing? I got to think, maybe people, this is just totally me guessing, maybe people, as part of COVID, brought things back home and started brewing a little bit more. And then now that COVID's over, everybody's ready to get out. I mean, I know that like me and my wife are planning trips already for 2022. I mean, we got some plans to go back to Texas this summer, see family, which we haven't seen in 2 years because of COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, we're the oldest one's about to turn 5, so we're talking like Disneyland, Disney World, that kind of stuff. I mean, we're going to be going places this year, hopefully, which is one of the reasons why I'm excited about it. But it's also, one of those things. It's like maybe that's part of the story, is that COVID really did a number on the economy, and we're really just not sure quite yet how it's all shaken out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not sure what's going to happen in the brewing industry. We're not sure what's going to happen in the home brewing industry. But there's cool things to be excited about. Like you said, these other, beverages, right? The what do they call them? Ready to drink cocktails. That's a big one, like Ranch Water and High Noon and all the Truly vodka seltzer. I mean, those things are cool and can be good. They're not necessarily my cup of tea. Haha, pun intended. But I mean, they're out there and people are drinking them. And like you said, it's bringing other drinkers into the fold. So you get somebody to try a Ranch Water and then they try something else that they like.
Yeah.
Or you get them to try a seltzer and then they're in you're in your brewery for other things. I mean, I think it's really funny too. Blue Owl, the brewery that I used to work for, has an IPA called "Do You Have Something That's Not Sour?" or something along those lines. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's just listening to customers and moving, right? So craft brewing and craft beer can change too, which is really cool. I mean, it's a little bit scary as you sit here, but there's also some like really exciting places, right? It's like, okay, great. So where do we go from now? Like, where do we go next? What's next on the docket? And I always like to look that way. Like, all right, what's next? Where are we going? And how can we grow from here?
Yeah. And I think that's going to be the big question. I have a feeling that the Brewers Association, the American Home Brewers Association, and everybody else who's involved in the industry, Brewlosophy included, is going to be looking at that. What can we do to get people interested, to make this more approachable to folks who maybe don't have much experience or any at all brewing beer, as well as those who may have taken a hiatus because of COVID or whatever other reasons. So shifting the focus specifically to Brewlosophy, I think I mentioned it a couple episodes ago. We've absolutely seen a hit in the revenue that we generate that helps to keep this thing afloat. And as much as you might not want to hear it, the way business is run, and Brulosophy is a business, is by generating revenue. Without that stream, we cannot do the things that we do. Now, we're very fortunate at Brulosophy that the primary source of our support comes from people who enjoy what we do, and that is primarily Patreon, which if you have not, at the very least, if you have not checked out what we have to offer for a couple of bucks a month, in addition to us giving you this free content, it's a lot of it actually, and there's more to come. You will see that very shortly. But in addition to that, you get other fun little rewards like access to, recipes that we haven't shared publicly before. You get rad discounts at Yakima Valley Hops. I say it at the beginning of every show because that is what keeps us going. We also have some really incredible sponsors who believe in what we're doing and are very, very supportive of that. And unfortunately, we've lost quite a few sponsors over the last year and a half because of the impact COVID had on their businesses. They could not generate the revenue because of the loss of homebrewers that they needed to be able to support a marketing budget. And that, like, for me, as somebody who's run this business for coming up on 9 years now, taking a step back and saying, wow, it used to be that I had to turn sponsors away. We've had the ability to pick and choose the sponsors that we want to work with, which we're very proud that we haven't had to step away from that too far, at least. We're getting to a point where without, some other form of support, whether that's Patreon or people using our affiliate links or whatever that is, we might have to start considering something else, and it's just been, I'm not married to the way that we're doing it, but I sure do like the way we've been doing it. And I would love for that not to have to change. And again, I said this before, I don't want to sound like we're desperate. We have no plans to stop what we're doing. In fact, if you've been listening to this show recently, you know that we've got something up our sleeves for 2023 that I think is going to be really, really exciting. But we still need that level of support. And I just wanted to get that out there. Now, in terms of Brulosophy's, the impact that COVID had, and this is kind of the last part of the COVID bit that I want to focus on. For me, on a very personal level, the biggest bummer has been not traveling. You brought this up with your family, Cade, but I've also, in almost 3 years now, have not done anything on the brewing and beer level for travel since 2020, since late 2019. I think the last thing I did was went over to Ireland for their homebrewing convention, and then it was only a few months later that COVID started, and I've been sitting on my ass at home for the entire time. I think I've been on an airplane once since COVID, and it was not to go to a beer event, and so I'm really excited for 2023. We've got a whole bunch of plans for traveling to these beer festivals. The AHA Homebrew Con is going to be in San Diego in 2023, and that's just about a 5-hour drive from where I live, so I think I may actually be making it back to HomebrewCon. We'll share those details later. We've got plans to do something up in Yakima for Hop Harvest 2023, and I'm sure there will be other things that come up as well, so I am super excited about that.
Yeah. The traveling piece of it, like I said, is going to be a lot of fun. I haven't nailed down necessarily any brewing travel this year because a lot of that depends on what conferences I'm attending.
Yeah.
With Dr. Shellhammer, but yeah, I mean, it's exciting, right? I mean, there's things that it feels like 2022 or 2023 could be the year where people are just finally peeking their heads back out, right? Like we're finally back out from under this COVID thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say it's going to return to business as normal because I don't think anything will ever be normal again, right? COVID changed the world. Yeah. But there's a lot to look forward to, and I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, so there's the whole monetary piece of it, but the cool thing is like, I mean, even though, the monetary piece and homebrewing is down and all that sort of stuff, I mean, we've kept up with all of our content production, and then we've also added a contributor this year, right? Will Lovell joined, continuing that brew club to Brulosophy pipeline, and we've got a new for 2023. I mean, Jordan Folks. I mean, if you listen to episode 90 of the Brew Lab, I mean, Jordan and I talked about it. We're pretty excited. And so there's a lot of stuff that's coming and that happened this year that sort of helped us keep up the content. But, that's a cool one too. The content is pretty awesome. And I don't want to steal your thunder on that. I want to let you read through some of that stuff. But.
Steal my thunder. It's partially your thunder as well, Cade. I mean, we all, that's the thing too, is it's kind of funny because I started Brulosophy. I was the guy, the voice behind Brulosophy, the fingers behind Brewlosophy, if you will, for the website. But the reality is that it is the work of a entire crew of people who keep this thing going. I could not just do this on my own. I mean, we're publishing 2 articles every week. We're publishing 2 podcasts every week, and soon we'll be publishing something else every week. You might want to go to youtube.com/@thebrewlosophy-show to stay abreast of what's going on there. Now, that cannot be done without the incredible dedication of, again, the Brewlosophy contributors, and that is just the truth of the matter. So Will Lovell is our newest one, and he has been kicking ass so far, and I can't wait for him to do even more in 2023 and show us what we've got. To all of the contributors, I'm not going to name all of them off right now, but we know who they are. You see their names on the articles. You hear their voices on this show. They are the reason that we're here as well. So now to talk about the website a bit, I think it was about a year and a half after I started Brewlosophy proper in February of 2014, where we had brought a couple contributors on, and I made this crazy commitment to publishing an experiment article every single week, every Monday of every week. And since then, we have not missed a single Monday. There have been times where we've gotten close, as Cade can relate and knows very well. There's a frantic push to just stick to this goal, and we've been able to do it, which means that in all of 2022, we published 52 experiment articles, and we will be hitting our 500th experiment total in 2023, which blows my mind. 500 different experiments, different variables, or the same variable with different styles, testing things out. Our goal being to, not only learn something about this thing that we love so much, but also to provide some level of easily digestible entertainment for people who also love brewing and beer. I just can't believe we're going to hit 500 experiments next year. We've also published 52 additional articles from one of our other projects, which includes the Hop Chronicles, Short and Shoddy, Brew It Yourself, some product reviews, stuff like that, for a total of 104 articles for 2022. On top of that, on top of everything else that we do, I suppose, is just wild to me.
Yeah, that's incredible, right? To think about that, like it's taking a step back for just a minute and understanding what 500 experiments actually means, right? That's 500 different batches of beer, right? Where you're looking at different variables. That's 500 different tasting panels, or at least during some of the COVID protocols, one person doing 10 different triangles. It's some sort of discrimination and sensory component, and that is just like, to me, remember, I'm getting into the brewing science world. I'm still in training, so I'm not like a brewing scientist or anything like that. But getting into the brewing science world, to think about like the number, if you had to do 500 sensory panels, that would take a crap load of time. It would take a long time and a lot of money and a lot of effort. And to think that Brewlosophy has been doing that is really amazing, and that's pretty cool. Maybe we should do something special for the 500th experiment. Like I don't know what we will do, but maybe just something like really cool. Like, oh yeah, here's maybe we can get New Belgium to do a couple of like giant production size batches of
yeah
something.
Keep dreaming there, buddy.
Yeah, I know. I'm still waiting for that Miller Coors or that Bud money to come in and sponsor the show. But
hey,
we'll
take.
see.
I don't. Hey, don't you speak ill of Miller Coors, but I don't care about Bud Light. No thanks.
No. Either one. I'll take them. I'll take your money. I'm okay. I'm an equal opportunity money taker. But in reality, I mean, it's all good. They all make great beer, in my mind. So, all of it, yes, Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors Light, all of those are good beers, to me. But it's fantastic, right? 500 freaking experiments. That's a shitload of content, right? I mean, like, think about it. Like, if you have a question about brewing, we've probably done an experiment on it, right? Or like something that's close. If you got a question about anything, I mean, you've got at least one place to go. It's totally free on the internet. You can go and look at the results and see what came up with, right? And there's sort of like a community that's built up around it too, which is just awesome.
Yeah.
People talking about our experiments and sharing ways to improve and sharing things they'd like to see next time. I mean, it's just been so fun. It's so much for me to be a part of it and for us to see this, but that's just amazing. 500 experiments. Do you, this is probably off the cuff, but do you have a favorite experiment of 2022?
Oh my God.
I can go first if you want some time to think about it.
Well, the thing is there's so many good ones, and some that were a bit more esoteric than when we, I was just on Basic Brewing Radio with James Spencer, and we were just chatting about experiments in general and such. And I often get the question, what's your favorite one, or which one has influenced you the most? And the truth is like the more esoteric stuff is what I find really interesting now. Whereas in the beginning, it was all like the basic stuff, like, firm temp or trub in the, kettle trub in the fermenter, stuff like that. Now we're getting down into the weeds where it's like, well, let's see how this impacts, beer and stuff like that. So I don't think I can think of a favorite of 2022. What's yours?
Well, that's a good one, right? Because like one of those that's like way down in the weeds, right? Was that one I did on the low gravity starter, right? It was the one that was inspired by the Brew Lab podcast, where it's like respiration versus fermentation and a yeast propagator. Like that was like super specific and like super down in the weeds, but it was a really fun episode to do. But I don't know. I think the most fun one for me this year was one of those where it's like, this is why I do brewing, because I can still learn things. Like this whole sour gut experiment that I tried, that was inspired by Jordan Folks said, hey, you need to come and brew with this stuff called sour gut. It's just sour wort, right? And use that to acidify your mash. And I did that, and the beer tasted different, and it came out different, statistically different, which I thought that's one of those where I was like, no, it's just acid wort. I mean, it's just sour wort. It's fine. It's the same thing as dumping lactic acid or using acidulated malt or any of these other things. But I thought that was really cool. And then to note that it actually like tasted a difference was kind of fun.
Yeah.
So that one was a cool one for me too. But it's all that stuff, right? I mean, those things are so cool that we're like testing out these different things. If you want to brew with sour gut, there's an experiment out there now. You're looking to cut some costs on your starters and do lower gravity starters. Yeah, it turns out you can do that too whenever you're trying to make beer. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're really, honestly, and with Steve Thanos and some of our other kind of newer contributors who came on toward the end of 2021, there's just been a new kind of injection of odd, I say odd lovingly, of odd variables that I'm like, yeah, let's test this stuff out. Fascinating stuff. Now, back to the 52 experiment articles that we published. When you think about it, you got me thinking about numbers when you were talking about it, kid. When you think about that, so this year in 2022, I believe we only published 2 or 3 articles using the COVID protocol. That is the self-administered triangle test, which we resorted to when we could not go out and collect data at homebrew club meetings and such because of the whole quarantine and such. So this year, 2022, we got back to our regular data collection stuff. And to me, of all things Brewlosophy, that was easily the most exciting. Just to be able to get back to normal. And for us, that's what our bread and butter is. That's what we're known for. And so that was really nice. But when you think about it, 52 experiment articles where we have a minimum participant threshold of 20. Usually people are collecting more data than that. That is a lot. That's over 1,000 separate triangle tests that were administered by us, which when you think about it is kind of wild, and one of the more interesting things that I did, I've been meaning to do it for a long time, that I personally did for the website this year, was published a kind of meta analysis of certain variables, and also the comparison of whether somebody's blindness to the variable would change the ultimate results to people who were informed of the variable prior. And what we found is it doesn't seem to have much of an impact, which sort of validates the way we have been doing things. And I know we still are going to get a lot of shit from people who are like, well, no, you gotta let people know so they know what to look for, yada, yada. It doesn't seem to have a big impact. So in answering your question, that was one of the more interesting ones that I did this year that I can recall. But yeah, 104 articles altogether. That's a lot of participants. That's a lot of data collected. And that's just a lot of work from all of you guys. And I suppose us here at Brewlosophy. I don't mean to pat our own backs, but I'm pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish coming out of COVID.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that is a big deal, right? That I think we said that last year on the episode of, looking forward into 2022, we said that we wanted to try to get away from the COVID protocol, and we did, which was really fun. And it was great getting back out there in front of tasters. Because, I mean, I really do, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff out there on the website or on the internet, about people doing experiments. And I love reading that kind of stuff. But there's nobody out there that's serving it to 20 20 tasters. There are very few people, right, that are out there getting 20 tasters on every single experiment and then publishing those results. So say what you will or won't about us or what you can take away from any individual article, but it's still really awesome that you've got this amazing, sensory research that's being done. So, I mean, I'll continue tooting Brulosophy's horn on that and sharing as much as I can, because I just think it's really cool. And I mean, it's just something that's so unique. I mean, every scientist out there would love to be able to serve their beer to 20 tasters and get a discrimination panel, but they just can't. It's super expensive and hard and time consuming to do it. And so having somebody out there like Brulosophy giving you an idea, right? I mean, even if you don't rely on the results, which is fine. I'm not saying that you need to, but it's just an idea, right? It's like, okay, well, when they brewed with sour gut, or when they did, when they told the tasters what they should expect, what the variable was, and tasters still get it wrong. It's like that kind of stuff that's like, okay, cool. So whenever we're doing our sensory processes as commercial brewers, or when I'm a home brewer, and I want to know what fermentation temperature is right, or whether I should use sodium metabisulfite during packaging, or any of those things. I mean, there's information out there for you. There's a resource, which I think is really cool. And again, it looks like if I calculate correctly, as long as there are still 52 weeks in 2023, we're going to have another 52 experiments upcoming next year.
Yeah, that's the plan. I don't know why we'd break stride at this point,
Right?
other than something tragic happening, But, you mentioned something about what other people think. And one thing that I noticed in 2022, and maybe it's because people are kind of moving away from homebrewing right now, there's absolutely a bit of an exodus away from this hobby right now. And I'm excited to see it get back up to the numbers where, we were at 5-6 years ago. But I noticed that there was a massive, I wouldn't say massive, but a noticeable, at the very least, decrease in the hate that gets thrown at us. There was a period of time there where there was one specific person that I'm not going to name, but online who was blatantly lying, accusing us of stuff, whether it had to do with the way we present our data and stuff going on there, or just me personally attacking me personally based off of rumors they heard or whatever. We did not see much of that this year. And I put some fires out earlier on, and I tried to be really cordial in addressing these folks and whatnot. But I'll tell you, it's been kind of nice to get back to this normal, honest way of being when it comes to this stuff. And so that's another kind of, I would say, positive thing that's happened in 2022. Well, that is basically where we're at, our experience with the website, and kind of how we've been doing overall in 2022. We've got to take a short break. We'll be right back with more of our views on 2022 and other arenas right after these messages.
There's no denying that stainless steel is the best material for brewing equipment, and Delta Brewing Systems offers some of the lowest prices on high-quality stainless gear, like the Firm Tank, which in addition to holding 8 gallons or 30 liters of wort, comes with a domed lid to even further reduce the chances of a messy blow-off. Plus, it can hold up to 4 psi of pressure for closed transfers. Delta Brewing Systems also has their own line of brew kettles, as well as one of the lowest-priced all-in-one electric brewing systems out there, and their prices are shockingly low. If you're in the market for legit stainless gear that won't break the bank, do yourself a favor and head over to deltabrewingsystems.com today. Family-owned Atlantic Brew Supply is the largest homebrew shop in the Southeast. No gimmicks, no multinational corporate overlords, and no BS. They offer exclusive malts, yeast, and more from local artisans, as well as award-winning recipe kits. They also sell professional brewing gear and cask equipment from sister companies ABS Commercial and Cask Supply. Most ingredients are available by the ounce, plus Atlantic Brew Supply has an on-site calculator to help you craft your best brew. Orders are processed same day, and 2-day shipping is guaranteed for East Coast customers. Get 15% off your first order using promo code BREWPOD. That's BRUPOD at AtlanticBrewSupply.com. As every brewer knows, the best beer requires the best hops, which Yakima Valley Hops provides fresh from the source to brewers around the world, carrying everything from classics like Cascade to modern favorites like Galaxy and Mosaic, as well as other ingredients and gear. Yakima Valley Hops has it all. And don't forget to check out their new podcast, The Late Edition, where the YVH crew goes into depth on our favorite plant with industry experts. Head over to YakimaValleyHops.com now to see all they have to offer, and subscribe to The Late Edition wherever it is you listen to podcasts.
So I started to get pressure to start a podcast from fans as well as other Brewlosophy contributors pretty soon after starting this whole thing back in 2014. I was initially hesitant for a few reasons, but here we are nearly 6 years later, and I really could not be happier with how things have worked out. Spending an hour each week hanging out with one of our rad contributors like you, Cade, talking about things we both love. Yeah, it's super cool. I feel really privileged to be able to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, right? And I think I was one of the people that really was encouraging of the Brewlosophy podcast, not directly, right? I wasn't like emailing you or doing it, but I was one of the avid listeners, right? That as soon as that first episode dropped, I was on it and I was listening to it. I wasn't even affiliated with Brewlosophy at the time, but I loved what we were doing, and the Brewlosophy podcast is going strong. I mean, what are we at now? Like, we're over 200 episodes of the Brewlosophy podcast, right? I mean, easily over 200. We'll probably, might break 300 this year. I mean, that's again, if you're looking at the website and 500 experiments and all the time and effort that takes into place, this is also where you get to hear us go like a little bit deeper into the weeds, right? A little bit more about like why we did this way. What was the idea for the design of the study? What were the results? What are we surprised about? What shocked us? I mean, I think all the time it feels like every episode that I do whenever you and I are recording it, it's like I also learn something new every time I'm, recording an episode, even though you and me are the ones that are talking about it. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot that's why we did this way, or oh, that's why this method is done this way. And I love it. I mean, I'm huge into brewing education. I mean, as you can really tell. But this is a big part of it, and I love the Brewlosophy podcast, and it's one of those things I hope we continue doing for a long time. I mean, I know we plan to, so.
Yeah. So this is the 266th episode of the Brewlosophy podcast. And so we will absolutely break 300 in 2023 at one per week. And this is the 49th episode of 2022, meaning that we only skipped 3 weeks. Now, when it comes to podcasting, things are a little bit different than when it comes to, compared to publishing articles on a website. So we actually allot for 4 weeks off every year, and I only took 3 this year. So I was kind of pleased with that. Pretty sweet. And when we're taking those weeks off, it really is. We need a break. I mean, people like to look at us and they're like, oh, you're lucky. You just sit and talk about beer and write about beer all day long. It's so easy. I spend more time doing this than I do at my 40-hour-a-week job. And the fact that I still have to have a 40-hour-a-week job to support my family says something. So when we're asking for support, it truly is to help us to continue doing this thing. And I don't want to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but please consider, if you like what we're doing and you're reading our website and listening to the show and you have any support you want to throw our way, we will take whatever you have to offer, because we do want to keep doing this as well. And again, no plans to end anytime soon. And we're super stoked to break the 300 episode mark in 2023. Now, one of the cool things about the Brewlosophy podcast, in my opinion, that happened in 2022, it kind of stems from a bummer of a deal. Jersey moved from California to Oklahoma with his family. It was kind of a promise he made to his family when he retired from the military, and that happened. And so he moved out to Oklahoma, which left us kind of wondering what we were going to do with the 1 minute beer review with Jersey and Tim. I invited one of our really close friends, Justin, on board to kind of replace Jersey. And we did that for a while. And then as we were sitting around talking one day, I had this idea, why don't we just do a series where once every quarter or so we bring on, people to review beers. Originally, the plan was Tim and Justin, and we review a grip of beers in one show. And I asked people about it. I asked listeners of the show. I asked our patrons, and everybody thought that would be a good idea. Most people seem to think that'd be a good idea. So we started out doing that, and then the Brew Club, which we're going to talk about in more detail in a little bit, came up with an idea that it was also kind of a, hey, how about you review these beers from Brew Club members on the show? And so we decided to do that as well. And that's the Average Brew Reviews episodes, where that is Tim and Justin. And so then I'm thinking about the listener submitted beer reviews series going, well, what would make that a little bit more fun? What if it was we need to get some a feminine touch on this show. And so I invited my wife, Laura, and Tim's wife, Michelle, to join us on those. And I think we've done 2 or 3 of those episodes so far. And they have been an absolute hit with our fans, at least the ones who reach out to me. So I've been stoked with those 2 new series that we've introduced for the Brewlosophy podcast in 2022. And we absolutely plan to continue doing them through, well, indefinitely at this point. But every quarter having, listener submitted beer reviews, and then also every quarter having the average brew reviews with Tim and Justin. Those have been such a blast for me, as well as I think the people involved.
Yeah, I love listening to those too, right? I mean, they're a lot of fun just to like hear people's like, it's fun just to like almost pretend that you're sitting there with you, drinking the beers, or tasting them alongside too. And that's always one of those things I thought would be really cool. It's so hard, and there's so many logistical challenges to it too. But I mean, just like sitting around and drinking a beer with people is so much fun. It would be fun if you could actually get like listeners to submit their own beer reviews of their beer, but too hard. And it would add who knows how much time to your already busy, recording and editing 2 podcasts.
Oh,
by
God.
the way. Yeah. But you made a comment on time there too, right? Which is like the time it takes to prepare for this episode, right? It takes me probably an hour and a half or 2 hours at least to just prepare the show notes for the show, and then another hour to record it. And that's every time you're on one of these episodes. I mean, I'm sure it's similar to you, but then in addition, you've also got to then edit all the audio together and edit out all of our errors and flubs and everything.
We don't mess up, Cade. What are you talking about?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I don't have a dog clicker here sitting on my desk for every time I need to click so that you see an audio spike and can edit it. And I won't tell you how many times that even happens in the Brew Lab too. But it's a crap load of work. And it's just so fun. And I think people really love it, right? I mean, the Brewlosophy podcast is almost over 1,000 reviews. That's amazing. That's really cool. I hope one day that the Brew Lab can get up to that level. We still got a long way to go. But it's really cool. And again, it's super great content. People, if you're looking for any sort of brewing question, you can listen to the Brewlosophy podcast for it. And I know, and listeners to this show are like nodding their heads going like, yeah, no, we already listened to it. Dummy. Yeah. You don't need to tell us. But that's true. But tell other people about it. Tell your friends about it. And get other people to listen to it. So it's pretty cool. I am curious. You were talking about the home brewing having this sort of like exodus. Are you seeing a similar exodus with the Brewlosophy podcast numbers? I mean, I don't have access to those. You're the only one that sees that stuff.
Yeah, and I've been fairly comfortable sharing them. I try to avoid patting my own back as much as possible, but sometimes facts are just facts. We have not seen much of an exodus in terms of our numbers on the Brewlosophy podcast. The website, I would say, has kind of reverted back to maybe a couple years ago, but not by a huge amount, by a huge margin. So we're still getting the people who are interested in this. At the very least, they're opening up the web pages. They're listening to the show for some amount of time. So we've been really fortunate on that. I like to think it's because we're providing something entertaining, but it could be something else. I don't know. So I wouldn't say no. We've been pretty fortunate there. But one of the things that was interesting that happened this year, somebody sent me this spreadsheet, and it had all of these different like brewing and beer related podcasts on it and all of that. And then whoever made this spreadsheet, I don't know if it was the guy who sent it to me or what, but it was like broken down by reviews and number of downloads and all of these things that they got from some other source or whatever. And I'll tell you, seeing our name, seeing the Brewlosophy podcast so high on so many of these marks was really, it made me feel pretty good. I'll be honest. It's sometimes difficult to gauge interest in something that you're doing on this level, at least for an older dude like me. I mean, I'm in my 40s now. There weren't podcasts when I was younger. I'm figuring this out as I go. So to see that level of validation, I think is just really cool. And we have all of our listeners and all the fans out there who like what we're doing to thank for that. And so I really do want to let you all know how much we appreciate your kind of, I guess, commitment to listening to us and hearing us blow hard week after week.
Well, hopefully it's a little bit more than blow hard. But
I don't know, man.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I've been out over my skis a number of times too, for sure. Which I've tried to be confident, or not confident. I try to be cognizant of, and at least admit when I'm out over my skis. But I think that's one of the cool parts about it, dude. It's like one of the things that I love the most about Brewlosophy is just we're being honest about it, right? Like, and we're not too big to say like, oh shit, yeah, I was totally wrong on that, or like. Or you know, oh, that's a really great idea. I hadn't thought about it that way before, right? I'm off over here in this other space. And that's one of the ways I learn the most when we're recording too, is like I've got notes or something that I'm, you know, thinking about saying. And then you say something, I'm like, that's like, aha, duh, that's it. That's what makes it. And I hope listeners out there are having those moments too.
Yeah.
Whenever they're listening to the podcast and finding it interesting and continuing to listen. And hopefully continuing to listen to the next 50 episode that we do next year, getting over episode 300. I mean, holy moly.
I know.
That's pretty cool. It's just exciting too to be on this side of the table and go like, crap, we've done a whole lot. You know?
Yeah.
We've done a lot of stuff. It's fun to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, you know, one of the things when I started Brewlosophy in the very beginning, it's kind of a personal philosophy of mine that I just want to be honest. I don't want to be an asshole, but I want to be honest with people. I don't want to do the thing where I'm hiding behind something with some ulterior motive. Nothing like that. I don't want to live like that, and I don't want anything that is a part of me like Brewlosophy to be like that. And so I made it a point in the very beginning not, you know, to try to answer questions as honestly as possible, and to address certain issues as honestly as possible. And that's why I'm okay talking about how important it is that we get the support that we do. I often get emails from people, often meaning like maybe once or twice a month. I just got one last week from people who are complaining about the ads on the website, who are complaining about the ads on the podcast. You have to realize that if this is already a sacrifice for me, and if I'm able to go out and buy a case of Miller Lite with money that I made off of the 60 hours a week that I put into this, I don't feel bad about that. When we're asking for support, when we are reaching out to sponsors and saying, "Hey, we would love to promote your product and your business because we believe in you," and they give us a little bit of money in return, that is just how things work. That is America. I think that's probably most of the world, and that I don't understand looking down on that. We like I mentioned earlier, we lost some sponsors. We have still yet to break that boundary and go to other options for generating revenue, because we believe that we've got the listenership and the people who really do enjoy what we're doing to support us even without that, right? And we also really value those sponsors. But that cannot go on forever. I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make. And I want to come off as at least somewhat humble in talking about that. And that's the reason for this level of honesty and me being, I guess, open about what's been going on. Again, not to sound like we're threatening being done. We are absolutely not. We will figure out other things if we have to. I would just love to be able to keep doing it the way that we have. But if you're going to reach out, and tell me that you like what we're doing, but you don't like the sponsor, then you have options. You have options to help us get away from that approach. Okay. I got an email from somebody. If you're the one who sent it, about all the crazy ads on the website lately, that was not our fault. Google AdSense made some weird changes. Cade, you saw it. I saw it as well. Mm-hmm. We fixed that right before recording this episode, actually. So you shouldn't be seeing the crazy amount of ads on the website anymore. But if you're not seeing any ads, that means you have an ad blocker on, and that goes against helping us to earn the revenue that we need to keep this thing afloat. So just if you don't mind just being thoughtful about that, and at least considering the cool stuff we offer over at patreon.com, we would really appreciate that. And that's where I will leave that. Now, we also get a lot of really, really nice emails, people leaving really great reviews on Apple Podcasts and other places where you can review podcasts like that. And it's funny because we have a feedback section in every episode of this show, and I've never felt like it would to me, it wouldn't feel very good if I read half the emails we receive, because they really are very kind to us. So if you're one of those people who has shot us an email telling us how much we've been an influence and how grateful you are for having us here. We appreciate you just as much as you appreciate us. Sorry for not reading your stuff, publicly. I think people might take that the wrong way, but we really are very fortunate to have the listenership and the fans that we do. And Cade, about a year and a half ago now, you started the second podcast on the Brewlosophy Network. And in the beginning, of course, as it is with all new things, we were wondering, how the hell is this thing going to go? And you did the same thing we did. You are going to drop 49 episodes in all of 2022, skipping only 3 weeks, which was due largely to the fact that you had a baby. So it makes sense why you would do that. But congrats on all these success with the Brew Lab. You've made some incredible connections and just fascinatingly deep interviews with some of the brightest minds in brewing.
Well, right. Sometimes a little bit too deep, and I understand that. And that's okay. Hopefully, it gives you something to chew on and come back to. But yeah, my little baby boy was born in March, and that was a 2 week break. But yeah, it's pretty crazy to think. I mean, we just released. Was it episode? No. I mean, we've got over 90 episodes. I mean, I think we'll end 2022 around episode 93 or something like that, which means we're going to hit 100 episodes in 2023. Which is also amazing, right? I remember when you guys did the 100 episode with Jersey and Tim on the Brewlosophy podcast, right? I still remember that episode. So I've got some thoughts about where we're going to go. And of course, that's now a 10th episode. So Jordan Folks will be on it with me. That was a new series that we started this year that I love. And that was actually, again, listener inspired. So some listeners were commenting and were saying like, hey, we'd love to have like some sort of summary of the science. It's great to hear all the science and everything that goes in there, but can we do an episode where there's like, hey, let's just summarize what we heard? And so I'd been talking to Jordan and I said, hey Jordan, why don't you just come on and do this, right? Like, you're a home brewer, you're not a professional brewer, so like, what do you take away from these episodes? Like, what are high level takeaways? So we call it Applying the Science. And now we do every 10 episodes. We've done, I think we started with episode 60. We've done episode 70, 80, 90, and we'll have episode 100 coming up soon. Jordan and I have been talking about some fun things. So he lives in Portland and I live in Corvallis. So we're only about an hour and a half apart. So we're going to try to do something exciting for the 100th episode. I won't tease it too much because I don't 100% know what we're going to do yet. But it's going to be pretty cool. And it's pretty amazing to think that, like, yeah, this is 100 episodes of actual scientists, coming in here. I say actual, right? I mean, trained, like with PhDs and master students, and bachelors in science and brewers. I mean, these are people that are out there actually doing brewing science, in all shapes and forms. I mean, one of the coolest episodes from this year was a totally not useless episode, but it feels kind of that way. The one with Dr. John Paul May from Hopsteiner, where he talked about they discovered this additional homologue of humulones, and you don't have to worry about what any of that means. They discovered a new compound in hops, okay? And the last time they had done this was like 20 years ago. And John Paul May is the technical director of Hopsteiner, okay, the U.S. So he's been studying hops for years. He studied as an organic chemist, and they're making an internal standard, and they come across this weird peak on the chromatograph, and they go, that's weird. What is it? And then they dig down in, and they find an entirely new hop compound. And it's kind of cool, right? The big takeaway from that is, can we do anything with that hop compound? Well, no. But it's there, and that's really cool to see. It's like when you discover a new element or something. It's like, I don't know, this element, we can't really do anything with it, but we now know it exists. So there's all kinds of science that's done like that. And I mean, then you had the episode with the low gravity starter with Dr. Maria Mutsoglu, which I still get feedback almost at least once or twice a month about how to do yeast propagations in low gravity starters. I mean, that started with the scientists there at Miller Court, she was at Sierra Nevada at the time, trying to figure out how to maximize their propagations. And that science is applicable to everyone. Yeah. We've got an upcoming episode with Stacey Williams and Justin Alexander from New Belgium, where they're talking about mid-fermentation dry hopping. So that one's going to be fun. And I think it's just really cool. It's been really fun for me. It's where I get to just totally nerd out, and I hope that you do too, as the listeners nerd out. And I hope you love that. And I hope to continue doing it. So.
Well, I'll tell you, as the editor of the Brew Lab, and all the stuff that goes into pushing out each episode and making sure that it's well promoted and whatnot, I listen to these episodes, and yeah, don't get me wrong. There are times where, even as somebody who's been brewing for over 2 decades, there are times where I'm getting a little lost. But it never, you know, and I don't mean to butter your buns here, but you have a way of kind of bringing it back to a more digestible form pretty quickly. And so I always find, you know, yeah, there's going to be times where you may not understand what the guest is talking about, but it will get to a point where you're like, okay, I think I understand what's going on. And the information, while maybe it's not always super applicable to you specifically as a brewer, is very, very fascinating and really just, I feel like, serves to kind of broaden what we know about this thing that we love. But on top of that, it's giving a voice to the people who are doing so much hard work, who often go unnoticed, you know, and that's just researchers in general. They're out there doing all of this work to try to, you know, solve the world's problems, whether it has to do with beer or physical health. And oftentimes they go unnoticed, and this gives them that voice. And I think that's rad. If you haven't listened to the Brew Lab, I highly recommend you go check it out. It's the BRU Lab. If you just search for Brewlosophy wherever you listen to podcast, you'll find it as well. But yeah, man, congrats on all the success there. I think it's been really cool that your numbers for the Brew Lab continue to increase, which we're lucky because we started it in COVID, you know, started the podcast during COVID. And so it was so new that we still had ample time to kind of ramp things up, and it looks like things are going in a positive direction. I think that's great.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited to see things go. And, you know, like I said, I said this last year too, and I'll say it again. I'm always interested in feedback. If there's ways that we can improve or things that you would like to see, episodes of the show that you would like to do. I mean, so many of the episodes have been listener submitted where it's like, hey, I would like to listen to an episode about this or that. You know, I got one that's in the works as well about all the different liquid hop products, right, that are out. So we got an episode that's going to look at that one here in a few weeks or a month. So it's cool, right? I mean, if there's anything that you want to know about science, like there's something where you just have a question and you're like, why does this work the way that it works? Shoot me an email and I'll see if I can get somebody on to talk about it. A real scientist, not just me, you know, saying anything. But yeah, I really hope to continue it, and I'm glad people are listening, and I hope the numbers continue to increase and people keep finding it fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mentioned it earlier. We have got something new in the works. There is a reason that I'm not sharing too much about it, but it's obviously associated with the video thing and YouTube specifically. YouTube.com/@thebrewlosophy without the umlaut, just the regular U, and then show will take you to our page. There is currently nothing there. I thought that was funny at first, but I think some people think we might be playing some trick on them. I promise you it's not a trick. We have got something coming. As you're probably guessing, it is going to be on YouTube. I'm not going to say much more because we want it to be a bit of a surprise. You've got another month or so to wait, but I think you'll be really thrilled with everything that's going on there. I've always wondered, Cade, do people who listen to podcasts do that and not watch? I do both. I sit in bed at night. When I wait for my wife to come to bed, I'm on YouTube watching brewing videos. That's just what I do. Brewing, or I really recently got into like knife forging videos. I don't know why. They're really cool though. Yeah, I know. And all of them happen to be ASMR as well. So it's like this weird, like it's just kind of tickles all these different, fascinations in me. But we are doing something over on YouTube. We would really appreciate you going and getting the ball rolling now on us upping our subscribers. All you have to do is go subscribe. I promise you, we're not going to be posting stuff that you're not going to want to see as a brewer. I think everything is going to interest you. And we have got some really interesting ideas up our sleeve that are probably going to step outside of what you'd ever expect from Brewlosophy, which is going to be a lot of fun. Really cool. Again, that's youtube.com/@thebrewlosophy show. It is going to be called The Brewlosophy Show. You will learn more as we progress, I promise you. Now, I'd like to spend a minute also talking about one of the other fascinatingly cool arms of Brewlosophy, something that you have some experience kind of being a leader in a little bit, Cade, at least years ago before you joined the crew, is the Brew Club.
Yeah, I love the brew club, right? I mean, obviously, it's how I got involved with Brewlosophy. I started doing a brew club contributor experiment, or a brew club a collaborator, I guess, experiment, or whatever it's called these days. But yeah, doing an experiment where it's just me. Like, I was totally unaffiliated with Brewlosophy, but I did my own version of a Brewlosophy experiment, and then I got involved, met Marshall at a conference, and Bob's your uncle. Here we are, now having my own podcast, a podcast is produced through the Brewlosophy Network, and it's just really cool. Like the Brew Club is fun. It's a club, right? It's all online, so it's all over the country. It's not just geographically based. They meet every month. They've got cool things like the Average Brews, where they once a quarter everybody in the club brews the same beer or at least a similar recipe, and then they send it to Marshall, and those beers get tasted on air, which I just think is so cool, right? I mean, that's just such a really fun way to like have your beer be up evaluated against somebody else. It's almost like a live judging session, except without, certified judges. But still, I mean, it's pretty cool. And it's so awesome. I mean, those guys over there at the Brew Club are doing a great job. They've expanded it a lot. The club is growing. There's monthly guests each month from like different industry people. I was on at one point. Marshall, I know you were on at one point. John Palmer was there. It's really amazing. So they've done a great job of expanding that. And the coolest thing to me, again, is it's all online. So I mean, it doesn't take away from your local club if you want to continue doing, brewing and attending events at your local club. It's super easy and it's super fun. It's just another great community to join and be a part of, that is affiliated with Brewlosophy.
And I think that's the key, is that it's a community. And, the original idea for the Brew Club was mine. And I kind of started it off with the encouragement of a few fans of Brewlosophy when I proposed it to them. I think they were all patrons, and we had talked about it in one of our monthly, we meet every month with a certain tier of patrons to just shoot the shit and have beers and whatever else, and just kind of have some fun. And during one of those chats a few years ago, this idea of the Brew Club came up. We started it, and then it kind of dwindled away a little bit. People were somewhat active on the Facebook page. And then COVID hit, and it was like, okay, we need something to keep ourselves interested, to keep this community roaring. And so a group of folks got together, and they took over the reins. I am no longer even consider myself on the leadership crew of the Brew Club, but these people have it together, and the things that they have done, I mean, it's so cool. Right now, membership, as rated by the number of people in the group on Facebook, is over 2,800 people. Over 2,800 people are members of the Brew Club. Now, that's in part because it's free. You can go join it right now. It's facebook.com/groups/the Brew Club, and you will find it, or just search the Brew Club on Facebook, and you can join, and you are automatically a member. You can still be a member of your local if that's what you want, but you can also participate in all the cool stuff that the Brew Club has going on. Like you said, Cade, they've got once a month, they have somebody come on the Brew Club Facebook page to do a chat with members, and it's open to everybody. Again, they are talking about adding a paid tier so that certain, if you're a paid member of a club, there are certain benefits that you're just going to get that people who don't pay get, and that's fine. That money does not come to us. That is to support the club. We make nothing off of the Brew Club. We just get a cool community of people to hang out with. Again, they've got the Brew Club Experiment Series, like you mentioned, Cade, as well, that you participated in. If you have an experiment you want to perform, you can join the club, talk with one of the leadership members, and they will walk you through how exactly to get going on your own experiment, and we'll publish it on the website for you so that you can have your name out there with the work that you're doing. Sort of our way of doing what you do on the Brew Lab, Cade, is kind of giving a voice to the other people who are interested in experimenting with brewing and beer. The Average Brew project is my favorite thing that they've come up with, and basically what it is they send a survey out every quarter to all members, and every member of the club gets to vote on all these different parameters, the things that they want to brew, the style they want to brew, and then they compile all that together and they say, all right, here for this quarter is what everybody's going to brew. And they give you exactly kind of the things that you got to do. Everybody does that. And then they get together and they talk about, on the Facebook page, they talk about each other's experiences with those beers, brewing the beers, how they taste, how they came out. And then a group of them get selected to send them in to me to review with Justin and Tim. It's awesome. Right now, they do all sorts of giveaways, but they're working with Delta Brewing Systems, who make, in my opinion, some of the best fermenters on the market. It's what all I use these days. They're doing giveaways with that. So, and all it is if you submit an experiment, then at the end of the quarter or whatever it is, the folks vote, the members of the club vote on what would their favorite experiment from the brew club members was for that period of time, and that winner gets a free fermentation vessel from Delta Ferm Tanks, from Delta Brewing Systems. It's just rad. All of the things that they're doing. They've got, they're working with people, hop suppliers and yeast suppliers and all of these other sponsors who are giving free stuff away to members of the club. Really, I know it sounds like I'm just kind of kissing their butts. They've got a lot to offer. And again, if you already have a club and you don't want to step out, I get it. You don't have to. But if you're looking for another community of people to join in, they're all very kind. We're not really big fans of being mean, of being jerks to each other. It's a really cool club to join. So I'm proud of what they've built. I'm really, really proud of the fact that it's associated with us, and that they are the way that they are. So kudos to the Brew Club. Again, you can check them out at facebook.com/groups/the Brew Club. Cade, I think that about brings us to the end of 2022 and all the cool stuff that we've got coming up for 2023. Is there anything else you'd like to say to our listeners before we sign off for the year?
Yeah, no, it's crazy to think that we're already done with 2022, right? And then about to get started into 2023. I'm excited. I'm excited for At the Brewlosophy Show, and all of the other fun stuff that we're going to be up to. I'm excited for another 50 experiments, another 50 Brewlosophy podcasts, and another 50 Brew Lab episodes, as well as all the other stuff that we're doing. So I'm excited that this thing continues, and look forward to chatting again with everybody in the same capacity at the end of 2023, looking at 2024.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Now, seriously, I want to express just how much all of us at Brewlosophy appreciate everybody who listens to this show, shares their feedback, reads the website, and especially those who help us to keep doing it by supporting us on Patreon. We are very, very lucky to have the number of patrons that we do. I don't know. My wife and I were talking about this a couple months ago. I don't know what we would do if we didn't have that level of support over at Patreon. It's awesome, and this just would not be possible without it. So thank you. And even for those who don't have the capacity to support us financially, we appreciate you listening. We're so glad you're here. Please don't go away. All right, don't forget to listen and subscribe to the Brew Lab podcast, where Cade takes you into the lab with brewing professionals to discuss the fascinating work they've done on our favorite beverage. And make sure to head to brewlosophy.com to stay current on all of the fun beer and brewing stuff we are up to.
The Brewlosophy podcast is made possible by the generous support of our sponsors, as well as all of our rad listeners. We seriously could not do this without you. Cheers to everyone who has subscribed and left a review of our show. It makes a huge difference. If you haven't yet, please consider doing so. Head over to brewlosophy.com/support to view a list of ways you can easily help us to continue producing this podcast. If you want a reward for your support, visit patreon.com/brewlosophy. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Brewlosophy podcast. Until then, think beer.
Start off the morning with some hot tea, lemon and honey, cause it suits my aroma. Put some herb in the bowl, yeah, it's homegrown. Ain't gotta go through no middleman no more.